All right, how are we looking? Looks alive. Sound looks good. Video looks okay, I guess. That looks like it's working. That looks good. Cool. All right, looks like we are up and running. All right, well, I suppose I just chill and wait for people to show up. Cool. All right, let's make some sounds. Hey, I don't know how to say it. Is it CODCZ or CODCZ? How's it going? So you're looking for the name effect that adds widening. There's a couple different ways to do that. The one that's just a straight up widening effect is going to be the utility. Literally has just a width control right here, so you can widen things or turn it down to be more in mono. You can also change this to the old mid-side mode, where you can like move things more towards the middle or more towards the side if you just right-click on it. The other kind of main way to do this is just to grab a chorus. Chorus or unison will also add a kind of widening effect. It's a little different than what the utility is. The utility one will actually like just widen it out, whereas the chorus is going to use really fast delays to make it seem wider than it actually is. So don't know which one of the effects you're talking about, but probably one of those two if you're talking about widening. Yeah, chorus is super useful for that. You got a track for me today? The link to the spreadsheet, same kind of spreadsheet I used last week, should be pinned up at the top if you want to toss a link in there. All right, well, I'm just going to keep on making some sounds. You're totally welcome to share something that's a work in progress. In fact, I encourage people to share songs before they're done, because once the song is finished and it's released, any feedback I have, you're not actually going to go back and like redo that track. So work in progress are totally fine. Also, all stages and all levels of experience or skill or whatever are also totally welcome. So don't feel like you have to have like a super polished, dope finished track, because in fact that's actually less interesting to give feedback on because it's already polished and it's already like kind of finished. So I would encourage you, if you feel comfortable with it, even if you have something that is like, you say you have one that's you're working on that you're trying to finish, getting feedback from other people can be a great way to kind of like push it from that 90% done up to that like 99% done kind of phase, which oftentimes is the hardest part of making a track. So don't feel shy. Feel free to share whatever it is you're working on. If that's something you're into, if you're not comfortable with that, that's also totally fine. But I think, excuse me, I don't know, my throat's all messed up today. I think getting comfortable with just like sharing tracks and sharing things that are not finished, that are kind of like not quite there yet, is very vulnerable. And so it's super scary, but it's also really beneficial once you get to that point where you feel like, okay, I can actually like share this and people can listen to it and give me some feedback. So I would encourage you to share it, but it's up to you. All right, I don't mind that. Let's do like an LFO with it, with the filter. Let's do this. Speed it up a bit. Don't mind that so far. Let's put a little envelope on this. Yeah, no worries. Hit me with whatever questions you got. I'm just hanging out, just waiting for people to show up and send me some tracks. What do you got for me? So follow actions, I actually ended up talking about a little bit the stream earlier this week on Tuesday, but I can definitely talk about them again because I've had a bunch of people ask me about them recently. So follow actions essentially allow you to program clips to behave in certain ways. Essentially, you can kind of pre-program clips to do certain actions or do certain things. So let me grab some samples. Let's see. Cool. So here are some percussion samples. So follow actions, they've changed a little bit in Live 11 from Live 10. They've also added follow actions for the master track, so essentially scene follow actions. So you can do it on an entire scene at once if you want to. But basically, if you go in here, you hit this little triangle here, you turn on the follow action, and basically you can program your clip to behave in one of these ways. So either no action, which does nothing. It'll either stop the clip after a certain amount of time or a certain number of loops, play it again, go to the previous clip, go to the next clip, go to the first clip, go to the last clip, go to a random clip including itself, go to a random clip excluding itself, or jump to a specific scene. So for example, if I want this clip to play for 2 bars, and then I want it to automatically go to the next clip, and I only want to hit one button, I basically hit this, go to follow actions, go to next, and then I could either link it to the number of loops. So in this case, this would loop 1 time and then go to the next clip, or you could unlink it and set it to be a certain amount of time. So say I want this to happen over 2 bars, I just type in 2 here. Anytime you see these 3 decimal points like this, it's bars, then beats or quarter notes, and then 16th notes. If I hit play here, it's going to play this for 2 bars, and then it's automatically jump down to the next one. And it jumps to the next one. And the next one, there's no follow action here, so it doesn't do anything. But if you wanted to, you could set up a whole series of follow actions where we could turn all of them on, have them all go to the next one after 1 bar. So that way I hit one button, it goes to the next one, the next one, the next one. And just keeps jumping through them. And once it gets to the end of your clips, if this one has a follow action of next, it goes back up to the top and it'll just keep cycling through them. So it's basically a way to program your clips to behave in certain ways. In my opinion, primarily useful for live performance. So when you're performing, you can only do so much at a time. So if you can hit one button and have it play one clip, then the next clip, and then the next clip, automatically, it makes your life a lot easier for things like that. But you can also do other things in here, like you could randomize these. So I could set these all up to be random after, let's say, 2 1/8 note, like that. So is that all of them? Yeah, so now if I play them, so you could use it to like randomly generate content. You could have a bunch of different notes loaded up in here, or a bunch of different loops of whatever you want, have it play for X amount of time, and then it'll just jump around. So you can use it for randomizing things. There's lots of fun stuff you can do with it. It's really kind of up to you just to be creative with it. The other thing you can do is you can have 2 follow actions. So I could have it, and then you can adjust the percentage of one versus the other. So I could have a 50-50 chance it'll go to a random clip, and a 50-50 chance it'll go to the next clip. So you can like add even more layers of randomization in there if you want to. And of course you could resample this, re-record it, and then you can start tweaking with it and play around with it, and then all of a sudden you got something cool that you can work with. And it works the same way for MIDI clips as it does for audio clips. Does that answer your question? There's a lot of really cool creative applications for it. It's not something you end up using like every day in your music production life, but there are definitely situations where it becomes really, really useful. And like I said, for live performance, it's really, really handy for kind of pre-programming behavior within your clips, so you don't need to hit everything manually by yourself every single time. Yeah, no worries. There's another function in Live called dummy clips. It's not really a function, it's just like a weird thing that Live does, where you can basically program clips to not have audio, but only have automation. And combining follow actions and dummy clips is really, really fun. In fact, I think I'll probably maybe next week or in the near future make a video on it, because it's, I think, highly underappreciated how cool dummy clips can actually be, especially when combined with follow actions. And then I don't know if you can see it because my head might be in the way, but if you were to if you were to go over to the master over here, you can see you have follow actions for the entire scene, which is pretty cool. And so it works the exact same way. All right, does anybody put anything in the song submission? No, not yet. But feel free to ask any other questions you may have. I'm just kind of hanging out here for right now. All right, let's go back to our sound we're making. Hey Chris, how's it going? Chris, right now I'm just kind of screwing around making some sounds, but I'm waiting for people to drop some songs in the spreadsheet that should be linked up at the top. So if you want to share a song and get some feedback on it, check out that link. do your best you can. Just and we'll figure it out. So whatever questions you got, I'm here for it. I'm kind of liking that now. A little too fast. All right, I went a little too crazy on the modulation now. All right, I need a slower LFO1 rate. Sorry if I'm just making really annoying sounds for you guys out there. I think my envelope is getting a little too crazy. I like that. That's working for me. Oh, I like that. I don't know how interesting it is to watch other people just kind of screw around and do sound design, so hopefully it's not boring you guys out there. But this is fun for me, at least. All right, I suppose I should actually make something with this instead of just making weird noises. That's not gonna work. Do you figure out how to ask that question or explain the question, Chris? There it is. I'm currently arranging a track in the session video, split into different scenes. The melody is 8 bars long, but I want to introduce a new sound with a new scene after 4 bars. Interesting. So we were just talking about follow actions and what you can do in situations like this. Well, not situations. We're talking about follow actions in general. So you want to have your, let's see, the melody is 8 bars, but I want to introduce a new sound with a new scene after 4 bars. So the best way I can think of to do this, so say you have, let's make a couple more MIDI tracks here. You got a scene here, and you got this melody track right here. And this is 8 bars, but you want to introduce a new scene down here of new sounds. The way you would do that, at least the easiest way that I can think of to do that, is if you right click on an empty clip slot, you can hit remove stop button, or just hit Command E or Control E, and that removes that stop button here. So if you are playing this scene, there's nothing playing right now because there's nothing there, and then you launch the next scene, there's no stop button here anymore, which means that you can introduce new ideas here without making this restart. So if I launch the next scene by clicking over here, it's probably behind my screen right now, but if I launch this one, it'll launch everything here while still playing this one from exactly wherever it is. So that would be, in my opinion, the easiest way to do it if you're trying to do a like top to bottom kind of mess around with an arrangement kind of thing. The other option would be just to have 2 clips, this first clip being the first half of the melody, and then the next clip being the next half of the melody. But that's splitting them, which it sounds like that's something you didn't want to do. Does that help you out? Is that useful in this situation? Yeah, removing stop button for live performance stuff is super, super handy. Or as I kind of mentioned, you could, I guess let's split the clip, but yeah, it's crazy how many weird little workarounds and tools there are, especially for live performance stuff. I've worked with a lot of people helping them kind of like build live performance setups and kind of like custom setups for being on stage. And there's always a solution. No matter what it is you're trying to do on stage, live can do it. I've yet to find a particular kind of performance or style performance that is not attainable through live, either through some kind of sneaky methodology. Hey Roberta, how you doing? You are more than welcome to ask a question. Just pop it in the chat and I will get around to it. This is supposed to be a song feedback stream, but nobody has sent me any songs yet. So I'm just chilling here. And if you guys want to ask questions, you are highly encouraged to do so. And I will keep an eye on the spreadsheet in case you want to put a song in there for feedback. All right, so you got a Max for Live arpeggiator, and sometimes when you export it, the timing of the arpeggiator gets off. Interesting. I'm not sure what would cause that, but I have a couple ideas for solutions. Which arpeggiator is it? There's a bunch of Max for Live arpeggiators. A couple ideas for getting around that, it would be to resample it to either audio or resample it to MIDI before you export it. Just the generic ARP? Is there just the generic Max for Live ARP? There's so many Max for Live arpeggiators that I'm not. If I go in here, it's just called ARP. Interesting. I don't even think I've ever used this one before. cool. So you're working with this guy, and it's only when you're exporting, like you're bouncing the final version, the timing gets off. So if I play something here. All right, so yep, there's something like there. So that's the velocity, we got length, we got mappings there. So if I play a note, cool. So if we just plug in, I don't know, some basic notes here. Beautiful. So even when you're freezing and flattening, the timing goes off. Let's do something like that and see what happens. Let me duplicate it first so we can keep the original. So if you freeze this and we flatten it, the timing there does look off for sure. Whereas this one, does it just start late? Is that what's going on here? Let's try another experiment where we just route the MIDI out of the arpeggiator into an empty MIDI track and see what happens. I have to play the notes. That would help. So the timing here looks pretty fine to me. Yeah, timing here is totally fine. That is fascinating. All right, so here is what I'd recommend doing, is do what I just did right here, where on your inputs and outputs, you grab the MIDI from the track with the arpeggiator, and you grab it post effects, you record it over here, because now here is the MIDI is all on time, and then you just take your instrument, whatever instrument you're using, and just put it on the new track with the MIDI, and the timing here, if I were to like freeze this and flatten it, should be right on time. So it's kind of weird that it's doing that. I'm not entirely sure if that's a bug or something strange. If you set your one here. Okay, so that's option number one, is just resample the MIDI and then replace the sound with your sound, and that should be fine. And that way you're basically removing the arpeggiator from the equation. I'm not sure why that's happening. The other situation you could deal with is the timing of this is actually fine. It doesn't start on time. So for some reason, the Maxwell arpeggiator is starting late. So the other option you could do is go into the very first note here, just right click and hit set 111 here, and that'll end the 1 of the grid up at the start right here. And then boom, everything's on time. So either one of those two will fix it for you. But honestly, I have no idea why that's happening in the first place. It shouldn't be happening at all with the arpeggiators. When you what's it called? When you freeze or flatten it, or you export it or something, it should just totally just be there. So it should be fine. But that's interesting. I have not spent a lot of time with this arpeggiator. It looks cool though. I like Maxwell arpeggiators. Yeah, I would freeze and flatten, adjust the 1, or resample the MIDI, and then the MIDI here's already on time, so you don't need to worry about it anymore. That's an interesting one. I have not seen that before. Hey Connor, how's it going? Yeah, so Connor, if you want to share a track, there is a Google spreadsheet that's pinned up at the top of the chat. Click on that and then put a track in there. It can be super old. I don't care how old it is. Just a little, yeah, just drop it in there and we'll take a listen. Oh, it is there. It's just down at the bottom. Never mind. I couldn't see it. I'm just going to take it and move it back to the top just so I can keep organized here. Yeah, for some reason my spreadsheet was only like a couple columns deep, so I couldn't see it, but now I see it. Cool. Sweet. So we'll take a listen to this. Hey Tom, yeah, you're more than welcome to share a track again. You shared it last week, but I'd love to hear new stuff too if you got something new. So let me know if you should be able to hear it, but just to double check, let me know if I start playing this and you can't hear it. Double. Weird. Let me see why that was happening double. That should be going there. That should be going there. Let's try this one more time. Yeah, that sounds way better. I don't know why it was doing that. Let's try that again and make sure. Cool, sorry about that. Yeah, let me know if something weird happens to the sound again like that. Dope. I really like that. This is definitely a style of music that I'm super into. This kind of like dark, ambient, kind of creepy, textural, sad music. Reminds me a little bit of Lorne. If you haven't checked him out, Lorn, super awesome. And anybody who's in the chat, feel free to pipe in with your own comments as well. I think the two big issues I have with this track is, number one, I want there to be a little bit more texture. Hey Rob, how's it going? Welcome. In that you're creating this really beautiful landscape with all the sounds that you're using, but I kind of want something to kind of fit in between the like long, steady synth sounds, kind of noisy, distorted synth sounds, and the kind of pretty sad piano. And this could be something really basic. This could be like scraping of like pots and pans, or like metallic sounds in the background, weird sound effects, animals, things from nature, things from cities, like car horns in the background, little just kind of like things that you could like just toss a bunch of reverb on that kind of fit in the background, that help kind of tell this story a little bit more. I think could be a really cool direction to go with it. Going more symphonic could also be really nice. I think, yeah, adding some more strings could be really cool. But I want like some weird, interesting, like soundscapey parts to it. Rob, this is for all different styles of music. This just happened to be the track we listened to. It was more kind of ambient, but any style is welcome. And then the other thing I kind of want a little bit more is, you kind of have this kind of like slow building into something more epic, but it doesn't get quite epic enough for me. So I feel like in this last like 30 seconds, you could really like amp up the noise or amp up the synths and like really build it out into like something that like really kind of crescendos and like a more kind of like Godspeed You Black Emperor kind of like big epic crescendo kind of thing. Because that's kind of where I want it to go, and it doesn't quite deliver there yet. But maybe you want to keep it a little more subtle, and you want to keep it a little more kind of like even keel. But I like it a lot. Very much into this style of music. I think it works really well. You could also play around a little bit more with like white noise and using that, because you have a little bit at the beginning and it's kind of throughout a bit, but you could really kind of play up that noise and have like, this is something I've done in a similar song, is have distortion on the piano, on the pretty part, that really, really slowly turns up. So it starts off this kind of like echoey, lo-fi kind of thing. And then by the time you get to the end, it's like really big and distorted, but you don't really notice when it became distorted. It just kind of like really slowly over time became that way. But super cool track. I'm digging it. Thanks for sharing that. And I realized Connor accidentally skipped you. I meant to click on your link and it clicked on the other one. All right, let's do the weird feedback thing again. I don't know why that is happening. There's something to do about how I'm getting audio into OBS, and it worked totally fine last time. And so I might just reset that every single time that I play a song. Let's try it one more time. Yeah. That's dope. I like the kind of like neo disco kind of feel to it. Has like a little bit of housey, a little bit of disco, but it all sounds very kind of modern, which I'm digging. Um, I think there's one part of this track that's really sticking out to me that's distracting from the rest of the track, and that's the like synthy string pad that you have. It's playing almost the entire track. It's this that synthy part. It's way too loud. It's taking over everything, and so it makes it really hard to hear the drums and all the vocal chops that you're doing in there, and it kind of is just getting in the way of a lot of stuff there. So um, I I think that to me it's probably one of the less interesting parts of the song. So you can keep the volume way down on it, and that's gonna clear up a lot of things in your mix, and it's gonna make the whole thing, I think, make a lot more sense and just feel like it flows a lot better. So that was my big thing is getting that synth sound down, and it kind of like it kind of fades out here a little bit, but it like you never really get a break from it, and that might be something you could also try doing is getting away from that synth sound a little bit. Other than that, like I said, I like the vocal chops. The other thing, and this is much more of a minor detail to me, is that I love the sound of your bass. You have this nice kind of like funky 70s sounding bass that's happening that's, I think, sonically going really well, but I think rhythmically it's not doing a whole lot. It's just playing like boom, boom. It's kind of like on quarter notes almost, or on eighth notes. And so I'm wondering if like rhythmically you can change it up a little bit, and so it's not just that kind of like same thing over and over again, or it's not just like super kind of consistent in terms of its timing. Yeah, a little more funkiness in the bass, and that's going to be like the magic sauce is going to make it's really going to help out this track. I did really like this transition here. I think this worked really well, and I think somebody in the chat also said that it worked. Jason was mentioning that. This is dope. Love what you're doing with the strings. Love what you're doing with the vocals here. But again, that kind of background pad sound is taking up too much space here, and it's taking attention away from those vocal parts, which I think sound really well produced and sound really good. Yeah, the flute with the choir and the percussion in the background is like really crushing it. I'm digging that a lot. There's a few little bass fills in there. That's good, but I think more bass fills like that I think will do really well. And then other things rhythmically, kick drum also feels a little basic. You could toss in a few extra kicks here and there, and I think that would help. Maybe you did, and I just didn't notice it. Yeah, turn that synth down, funk up the bass, funk up the drums a little bit, and I think you're well on your way. Anybody else got any thoughts, questions, comments, feedback, ideas? Feel free to toss them in the chat. Cool, but thanks for sharing that. That's a cool track too. All right, let's see if Spotify does crazy weird sound stuff. Just gonna let this play. I've got to open up Spotify. All right, Roberto, do you have a link that's not Spotify? Let's see if we can get this to work. All right, this is working, but come on, Spotify's being weird. All right, Roberto, this should be you. No, I got it working. It was just Spotify was being weird. But SoundCloud, I think, is probably the easiest solution, just kind of going forward. Can you guys hear that? That's the other thing about Spotify. I need to make sure if I'm playing this, you guys can hear it. No. Oh man, yeah. If you have something other than Spotify, that would be great because I've got to do all kinds of weird audio routing to get all of my audio into the stream. So if you have a SoundCloud link, that'd be sick and make my life way easier. Because I can hear it, but you guys can't. All right, I'm gonna skip ahead to Rob real quick, Roberto, and if you have a SoundCloud link, that would be really handy. All right, this is Rob, and then let me reset my audio here real quick before we do this to prevent any weird feedback loops. Cool. Nice, Rob. I mean, it's sounding good for 6 months. And all levels of experience and styles of music are welcome here. So don't worry about how long you've been producing. Is that you playing guitar or is that a sample? Nice. This is it's pretty good. I feel like I know what you're going for sonically, but it's not quite there yet. And I think there's a couple kind of minor things you can do that I think will really help this track feel a little bit more alive. Yeah, the guitar sounds pretty good. I think that the first thing I noticed is your kick. You're doing this kind of like boomy 808 kick, except it has this really kind of interesting mid-range thud to it. There's like some like mid-range frequencies. Where I think you're trying to go for this like plucky 808 sound, and what I'm getting is more of like a thudding 808 sound. And so I think you could either, I don't know if you made this from scratch or it's a sample or whatever you're using for it, but I would potentially think about either replacing that with something a little bit cleaner in terms of like that boomy 808 sound, or tweaking a little bit so it doesn't have quite as much mid-range to it. Because I like it as a starting point, as a jumping off point, but it's not quite doing it for me in terms of sound design. And it works a little better once the kick comes in, but it still has like a little bit too much of that mid-range kind of sound. And then there's really, I think, two other big things, maybe three other big things you can do. How about, you'd mentioned yourself, it's a little repetitive, and I think there's a couple directions you could head with it. I think number one, the strumming of the guitar chord. It's just the same chord over and over again. So making that chord pitch up or pitch down, even if it was something really basic like a 4-chord progression, I think would do a lot more in terms of eliciting an emotional response. I think chords are really interesting because humans react to them emotionally. And I think just by playing the same chord over and over again, you're not getting the emotion because you're not creating tension or relieving tension by moving the chord up and down through the scale. So that would be a really easy way to get a little bit more out of your strumming chord. Your more kind of like melody guitar part, I think works decently well, but I think you could give it a little bit more variety, and that would also make the whole thing feel a lot better. You could also try playing around with like adding some effects to it. You could like put some delay on it, maybe a little bit of reverb, make it kind of like get more spacey. Maybe layer 2 different melody parts together. That way they can kind of like interact with each other. There's a lot of different directions you could head with that, but I think there's a lot of room to explore with the guitar specifically. And then the last thing is with the drum production, primarily your snare. I actually think the snare is really solid. I think it fits really well for the style of music. I think it sounds good, but I think it needs a hair of reverb on it to help it fill it in a little bit more. And then the hi-hats. It's just that like constant 8th note hi-hat. Make the hi-hat speed up, make them slow down. Like even in the context of like 2 bars, 4 bars, 8 bars, something like that. Do little hi-hat fills, so it's not always the exact same speed, and that'll do a lot to help kind of change your energy. Because as far as I can tell right now, the hi-hat's just going to come in and then they go away for a second, and then they just come back. So using different parts of your drums to kind of change the energy level of your beat can be really, really helpful. It also can help. This is not so much like a dance beat; it's more of like a rap kind of beat. But if people are going to be dancing to it, having little tiny things that kind of change in the background, like hi-hats that speed up or slow down, or occasionally like a snare fill or extra kick drums, makes it more interesting for people to dance to. So that's something you might also want to consider. Or if they're rapping to it, they can change the pacing and timing of the rapping, not just based on the kick and the snare pattern, but also like things like hi-hats and little kind of details in the background. Yeah, I think the hi-hats work. I just want them to have more variety, and you don't need to do like crazy trappy, like wrenching, ratcheting hi-hat fills or anything like that. But just a little bit here and there, I think, could go a long way. They also sound a little bit quantized, so maybe add some swing to it, and or play with the velocity a little bit. That's a great way to make them sound more human. I think that for this kind of style of beat, you really want to make sure that humanness is there. So I think those are all kind of little details you can look into to help kind of flesh this out a little bit. But it's sounding dope. And of course, I think last thing, the best thing you can do for something like this is if you have any friends that play guitar or find somebody who plays guitar and have them play on top of it, and that way they can kind of jam out, and that gives it even more of a human feel. I do this a lot with violins. If I'm writing violins or cellos, I'll write them in contact or something like that, and then I'll get an actual violinist or cellist to play on top of it, and that way I mix the contact violins and the real person violins together, and I kind of get the best of both worlds. But yeah, it's a cool track. If anybody else is just joining us now or recently, there's a link up at the top if you want to submit a track to be shared. Roberto, did you have a SoundCloud link for that track or not? Or honestly, a link or anything, anywhere I can stream it online. I just can't stream through Spotify without tweaking all my setup. Tom, I'm getting an error message that your track was not found or it was removed. So if you want to re-upload it or change the link, that would be great. Okay, well, how's everybody doing this evening? Appreciate everybody for well, Roberto, you can, it doesn't need to be on SoundCloud. It can be any streaming service that I can just do online. Spotify wants me to open the app, and then the app's being annoying. You could also just send me another track. Yeah, YouTube video would totally work too. But I appreciate all you guys sharing stuff you're working on. It's super cool to hear what people are doing out there. And Tom, let me know when that link gets updated. Oh, cool. All right, so this is a track we took a listen to last week, and I'm curious to see how it's changed. Also, again, big thanks to all you guys for showing up. I'm going to be doing this every week, so if you want to come by next week, I'll be doing it again, and you can share a different track or you can get some more feedback. Sweet, Roberto, I'll check that after this track. I like that you added in the kind of like pluckier bass sound. It's working for me so far. In the chat, what do you guys think so far, this track? What's working, what's not working? Oh no, I got the feedback again. Weird, I have no idea why it's doing that. At least I know how to fix it. So this track is 5 minutes because you need to make it that long for an EP. I think you should make, I think the arrangement works so far. I think you should make it as long or short as you want it to. I think it didn't seem out of place for a type of song like this. It did feel like the last minute could have used a little something more to keep it going. But I like the changes that you made since last week. I think it definitely feels like an improvement. A couple kind of quick notes on it. Number one, I have mixed feelings about the timing of some of your piano playing. Sometimes I really like that it feels a little bit off, like the timing is a little earlier, a little bit late. And sometimes it's a little bit too off, and it's only a couple notes. It's really not a whole lot of them. And so I would definitely recommend going in here and like taking a listen, especially when the kick comes in. You really feel it if it's a little bit too off. So I would watch out for that. But don't overly quantize it. That's like definitely a mistake that a lot of people make. Other than that, I like the plucky bass that comes in. I kind of want it to be a little bit deeper, Like, I wonder if you like pitched it down an octave potentially, if it would still sound good, or if that's too low, or layer it up with something that has like a little bit more sub to it, and that way you get like a little bit more low end. The pluck is nice, the sound is nice, but I want it to be a little beefier on the low end mostly. So see if you can play around with that, see if you can layer it up a little bit. I think that could go a long way. Also with the bass, this is similar feedback that I gave to somebody else earlier. I think it was Connor. The bass sound is good, but rhythmically it's very, very consistent. And I think that even in like a more kind of chill, housey kind of style music like this, you still want that bass to kind of groove a little bit, and you don't always necessarily want it to be super consistent in terms of timing. I think that'll really help the section. So instead of just being bump, 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 you go bump, ba-dum, bump, or bump, bump, ba-dum. Or, I don't know, there's like a million different housey kind of rhythms you could do for that bass line that I think will fit a little better than just the really consistent on-time rhythm. Even if I just added one at the end of every like 2 bars where it's like bump, bump, bump. All right, and then last feedback. I didn't feel like this last week, but I feel like some really gentle vocals on this could actually go a really long way. Maybe I did say it last week, I don't remember. Not even somebody like singing vocal parts, just somebody like vocalizations, like a female vocalist just doing like, you know, oohs and ahs and like really long kind of vocalizations, especially during this section right here. I think that this works great as a kind of like intro. You're kind of setting the stage, letting people kind of know what the deal is, what it's going to sound like, and then here you instead of just repeating yourself, you add in like a vocalist singing a little bit, and I think that'll help fill out the arrangement and make the whole thing kind of flow a little bit better. And I think it'd be done really well. Because I do think the second half does get a little bit repetitive. I don't know if I would trust the voice box to this. I think you would have to either do some like sample diving and find like the perfect female vocalist. Maybe you could get away with the voice box in live, potentially. I think best case scenario, you find a vocalist and sing on top of it. I don't know if that's something that you're into or potentially thinking about doing, but I think that could go a long way to help make this section feel a little bit more alive. Because I think the piano part's really pretty, but by the time you get to like, I don't know, minute 4.5, you're like, okay, I get it. I've heard the piano part enough. Like you want to shift the attention away from the piano and have the piano start being the main character, and then have it be a supporting character in the second half, and have something else to kind of like be the focus there. But yeah, it's a cool track. I'm kind of digging the like really low key, chill, housey kind of vibe. Anybody in chat got any questions, comments, thoughts, ideas? All right, so Roberto, this is you, if I'm not mistaken.
I got all of my chicks in one club, dancing, hands are all up on that ass. Goddamn, Bacardi all up in my cup. Handsome, y'all wanna give me a hug? Yes, man, pull up my hand and let's walk to the floor. Give me a little, now I want some more. Spin you in circles, big booty galore. Drop to the ground and I pick it up slow. I got my mommy with me and we mobbing with me. We at the party, but the gang is with me. If you pour it up, I'ma drink it down. If you talking perp, then I'ma burn it down. Got the bottles up, put that ass down. If I pull you close, you better turn around. So the night is young and now we having fun, and I am the king, so bitches, where's my crown? Follow me though, throw it back like a free throw. It's Subenito, ven baila conmigo. Despacito, ven baila conmigo. Suavecito. Dance, 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 she crazy how she shaking all that ass, ass, ass. We faded, got me throwing on my back.
All right, Beto, you gotta let me know which one is you. Nice.
Sonics and poet, you know we Deandre. Tengo mucho hambre. Bring that ass over here, let me eat like a Sunday. Let's do this the fun way. Put that cherry on top, eat it up like a Sunday.
Nice, this is pretty dope.
Bring that pack back all the way before Monday. Let's keep it a sec. I only speak facts. Go get my drink and then bring it right back. I don't like to dance. She tugged on my pants to give me a chance to feel all that ass. Follow me up. Throw it back like a free throw. Subenito. Conmigo. Despacito. Conmigo. Suavecito.
The guitar solo is sick. The guitar solo is, I think, my favorite part of the whole track. All right. Yeah, this is gonna sound. I hope I'm not trying to diss the people who are doing the rapping, but the production is what really shines to me about this track. So I think you guys did a really solid job. I thought the guitar solo was perfect. It added so much to the track that was a brilliant idea. I thought the bongos were really sick. I don't know if you played all of them. I saw you playing them in the video, but I don't know if you were actually playing the bongos on the track. That worked really well. I honestly thought the things he did with the horns were really, really interesting. Let me see if I can find them. Was it earlier? These horn parts were really, really interesting. And I felt like the track could have used more stuff like that potentially. But other than that, yeah, the bongos are really interesting. The kick sounds dope. Snare, to me, sounds like just a kind of generic 808 snare, which I think is totally fine for this style of music. I think you could put a little bit more processing on the snare, and I wouldn't mind it personally, but it's up to you. And then I feel like the only thing that I really have that's kind of critical, and I'm not even sure, I think the horns were dope. I think not only were the horns dope, but the way you process them is really hard to tell exactly what's going on with them. Like they're doing like a cool like panning plus like a little bit of like delay or reverb or something to kind of like make them echo out. That was super cool, just as like a general thing that I think was working really well. And as far as the part that I thought was interesting is during like the main verses, you don't have any hi-hats, and it sounds like you're kind of using the bongos to kind of replace the energy of the hi-hats. But I'm wondering if that's something maybe you want to layer the two together, like have a little bit of hi-hat and a little bit of bongos to kind of like both create interesting rhythmic elements together. But I think that's totally optional. I think you got away with not doing hi-hats in a track like this, and I think it works totally fine without it. But I did notice that they weren't there. But I think that any random person listening to this track is not going to feel like, oh man, there's no hi-hats here. Yeah, the percussion is really solid. Honestly, I don't have a lot of like critical feedback. I think that I have more feedback for the rappers than I do for you as a producer. I think that you're kind of nailing it, and I really like the just the overall vibe. It has like a very kind of Miami going to the beach kind of vibe, which I think works really well for the rapping that they have in there. only other like final piece of feedback I might have is instead of putting the guitar solo at the end, put it in between the verses, and that way it acts kind of like a bridge. But again, that's totally optional on this. I think you need to do that. But I think it's more for kind of like processing on the rappers. I think that they're actually needs to do a good job. Some of the vocals sound a little dry to me, and I don't think you need a lot of processing for this style of music. But I think you could play around with a little bit of, I don't know, making it sound like it's like a lot of your the like little vocal parts that you put in between sound like they sound kind of like wide and interesting and doing different things, but the main vocal parts sound like really kind of like straight down the center. So I think you could play around with the vocal processing there. Again, for this style of music, I don't think you need to do a lot of processing to the vocals, but I'd be curious to hear what it sounds like if you were to go a little bit deeper down that direction. This guy's super processed, but the rest of them are not as processed. Yeah, I think the trick for this style of music is processing it, but making it sound like it's not processed. Like, you know how women will have like makeup that makes it look like they're not wearing makeup? It's kind of the same thing for vocal processing for this kind of music. Like, you want to make it look like, you want to make it sound like a little dolled up, but you don't want to make it like, you don't want to be actually notice it. So I think you're generally going in the right direction, but I think you could go a little bit more in the processing, like hair reverb, a little bit of like, I don't know, delay here and there could, or like just layering it up, doing, you know, multiple takes and having different layers. That's more for singing than it is for rapping though. Yeah, this is a dope track. I'm like struggling to find like really harsh or critical feedback, but it's like a little more processing on the snare, maybe a hair more processing on the vocals, guitar solo in the middle of the song instead of at the end. But overall, I just really dig the vibe. I think that you really kind of nailed it in a lot of ways with the guitar and the bongos and the beat. It's got all the things that I want in a track like this. So I think you honestly crushed it pretty hard. Let me give one more listen to the intro, just to listen. Yeah, intro sounds dope. Yeah, I think, yeah, any other feedback I have is like really minor nitpicky stuff that's like not super important. Yeah, no worries. I would love to hear more tracks from you at some point. I think sometimes it's hard to give feedback on tracks that are finished, like you already got the video out and everything, because you're not going to go back and tweak any of that stuff. But send me a work in progress sometime, and I'll check it out and kind of see what it's like during the process, and that way the feedback is a little more useful. Sweet. So as far as I can tell, I've gotten to everybody on the list there. Sweet. So I might stick around for a few more minutes if anybody else shows up, but I appreciate everybody sharing the tracks and listening and giving each other feedback and helping out. And I'm going to be doing this every Friday. This is only the second song feedback stream I've done, but I'm going to keep trying on Fridays to be doing this. Right. Well, hey, Roberta, thanks for stopping by. Appreciate it. And I'd love to hear another track next week if you're around. So yeah, so I think awesome. Yeah, I mean, this is one of my favorite things to do is just to like hang out and listen to music and talk about music. I think it's really hard to find people to actually give you feedback. Like you share a track with your friends who either don't produce or you share it with your girlfriend or whatever, and they're like, "Oh man, it sounds dope," and you're like, "Cool, that doesn't actually help me become a better producer. I don't actually like learn or grow from that." So I think this is a really useful activity just for getting better producing and like talking about music and learning and growing kind of as a community or as a crew. So I'm definitely going to keep doing this, and if the interest is still around, I might do this more than just Fridays in the future. But I'm always looking for ways to kind of grow and expand the channel and what we're doing. Sweet. Well, I think I'm just gonna call it here then. It seems like we got to everybody. But again, thanks you guys for showing up. I put some links in the spreadsheet to the new Discord that's up. So if you want to join the Discord, check it out. I'm kind of a baby in the Discord world, so I'm always looking for ideas on how to make that a thing. So feel free to check that out. But yeah, as always, this doesn't really happen without you guys. So I appreciate everybody for showing up and sharing your music. Yeah, it's so hard to find like people actually give you feedback, which is part of why I'm doing this, because I really like doing it. It's a lot of fun for me, and I think it's a useful thing to do. Cool. Well, peace out, everybody. I will be back streaming on Tuesday. I'm just doing like a general music production stream on Tuesdays and doing the song feedback streams on Fridays. So have a good weekend, make some music, and I'll see you next week.